You are listening to the Be the Bridge podcast with Latasha Morrison.
How you guys doing today? It's exciting.
Each week, Be the Bridge podcast tackles subjects related to race and culture with the goal of bringing understanding.
But I'm going to do it in the spirit of love.
We believe understanding can move us toward racial healing, racial equity, and racial unity. Latasha Morrison is the founder of Be the Bridge, which is an organization responding to racial brokenness and systemic injustice in our world. This podcast is an extension of our vision to make sure people are no longer conditioned by a racialized society, but grounded in truth. If you have not hit the subscribe button, please do so now. Without further ado, let's begin today's podcast. Oh, and stick around for some important information at the end.
Hello, Be the Bridge community. We have an exciting guest for you to hear from today. You may have missed this, but a few years ago, I was able to interview someone on Facebook Live before we had the podcast. And we were interviewing her about some children's books that she was launching, Dorena Williamson. And I am so glad to have her on this call. Not only, first of all, her name, every time I say her name, Dorena, I always think about my grandmother's name, Doretha. It's so close, you know? Aww. And so that always reminds me of you. And I'm so glad that you're here. And I'll just, just so those of you who have never heard of Dorena, if you're hearing of her for the first time, I want to give you a little information about who she is. She's a speaker. She's a best-selling writer. She's a church planter and a bridge builder whose work has been featured in Christianity Today and Crosswalk. She writes stories that celebrate all colors, build cultural bridges. She's a bridge builder and her stories motivate lasting change for children and their parents. She's written several books called Colorful, Thoughtful, Graceful, just brilliant. I love all of it. She and her husband Chris have 4 children, and so we'll give you more information about how you can find out about her work and where she lives and all of those things. And I am so happy to have you, Dorena.
Oh, well, I feel so honored to share a name with your grandmother. That is, I'm going to hold that as a very, very precious connection. So we were both named very well.
I know, right? And so I'm just, we met. Let's think about it. Okay, so we met several years ago at the Justice Conference, right?
That's right.
We met. You didn't think I remembered that, do you?
I did. I was sitting there going, okay. I know we've had so many points of connection, and I love that I was on Facebook Live with you before. I feel like I was back in the preliminary stage of you didn't have the podcast. So
I didn't have a podcast.
I was back in the olden days, whatever those
are. In the
old
old days, the years. Look, and Be the Bridge is so young, and when we say stuff like that, we're like, oh yeah, that was 3 years ago. That was 2 years ago.
It wasn't that long ago.
Like it was so
years.
long ago. Like, look, I think we're about to turn 6 as a whole. So, but at the very beginning stages of Be the Bridge, some of the first, I would say, pioneers of people who started Be the Bridge groups. When I would travel, I went to the Justice Conference and we met up with some people who were doing Be the Bridge groups and are interested in doing Be the Bridge groups. I want to say we met up at Panera Bread.
We did. We sure did. And I was so honored to meet you.
And it was like, I was thinking when I went there, I think I was thinking that it would just be a handful of people. And it was like, I think about 25, 30 people there. And maybe I'm I'm maybe dating myself. It may have been 5. Now I think it was over 5, but I know it was a full tables of people. And I was just really taken back. I was really surprised. And I think that was the first indication to me that people are really doing this. Like, people are actually, putting action behind their words. They are leaning into this conversation. And I remember meeting you because it was like, there was a lot of our beautiful sisters, our white women sisters. And then there was just a handful of people of color there, and I remember you. And and I think we've stayed in contact, since then.
Yes.
In some kind of way.
That's exactly right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I remember being so excited when that communication went out in the Facebook, because Facebook was the forum that was, everything was sort of going. And I just remember being
we were
so
using
happy
Facebook groups. Yeah.
Yep. So and since then, just
we still use that, by the way.
We do.
We still have the Facebook group. It still has value. I tell you, it's a battle though. It's a battle, but we still use that because at the beginning stages of this organization, this is how we grew. This is how we communicated. Now we have other means of communicating. But I'm so glad to know you. And I was in Nashville. I forget. I think maybe a year. It was right before the pandemic, I think. And I was able to eat with, have lunch with you and your husband. Both.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And you guys have since moved. You guys are church planners, as you say. You're church planners, and you have since moved from Nashville to Franklin, right?
Well, actually, we've lived in Franklin the entire time, but our church started in Franklin and then moved to Nashville about 8 or 9 years ago. So,
I had it backwards.
Yep, it's all in the Middle Tennessee area. So, church is about 25 minutes from home. But we're grateful to be in the greater Nashville area now and just continuing to welcome people from all around Middle Tennessee and virtually from around the world.
Wow. So when we first met, neither one of us were authors at that time. I remember you talking about writing some children's books at that Panera Bread. And you have done that. This, I think, is your fourth book. Is this your fourth?
This is actually number 5.
Oh, number 5.
Crazy.
I'm just getting all the information wrong. So congratulations on number 5. It's called Crown with Glory.
Yes.
And so we know what that one is about. And those of you, this is about hair. And this is a big subject, I know we're coming out of Black History Month, but, as I tell people, I am Black 365 days of the year. So I am not limited to 1 month to talk about any history pertaining to my people. Okay.
Yes.
And pertaining to my interests and all of that. So, and our history is also American history. There is no comma in that. So, I am so excited about Crown with Glory. Okay. What inspired you? See, I'm going to ask you this question. What inspired you? But I know what inspired you because it's lived experience. But for the audience, for those of you who are listening, Crown with Glory, some of you may feel like, oh, we've heard this a lot. But listen, this is a much needed conversation because we actually, we're going to talk about this, about policy, because kids are still getting suspended because of their natural hair. And so what inspired you to write this book?
Well, this book was, as you said, inspired by my lived experience. I have 3 sisters and a brother, and then I've raised 3 daughters and a son. And one night I was wrapping my youngest daughter's hair at night, and she's now 18. So it's been a few years ago when, mothers help their daughters wrap their hair at night, make sure that head wrap is on tight so that the
so
braids,
we wrap it instead of if you're in a different context besides African American, how sometimes you help your daughter brush out the tangles in her hair, when they're younger. We wrap our hair. So that means so it's smooth. We wrap it around and we put like a silk scarf on our hair to maintain the moisture. So go ahead.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And depending on if we're wearing a short haircut, we may wrap it and actually be wrapping the hair around our head. Literally wrapping the hair kind of in a circle, depending on the length of the hair. And then we put that headscarf around it so that in the morning we can take the headscarf off and then gently, almost don't even have to comb it, almost just finger our hair back down, and our style is still smooth since we don't have to wash it every day. So again, as you took a pause, Tasha, to just unpack for our majority race brothers and sisters, or people of any race who don't understand the cultural context of wrapping hair at night. I've included a spread about that in the book, because what this story does, first of all, is give us Black girls representation, with a girl celebrating her beauty, celebrating her hair all throughout her life journey, from the time she's a baby until she grows up and goes to college and lives out her purpose. She celebrates all of her unique hairstyles. But a book like this is also intended to give people outside of our Black cultural context a window in, so they can see, oh, this is what you do at night. Oh, okay, so you're braiding your hair when you swim, so that, that keeps your style intact and keeps you from having to be limited to, I can't get in the water because, what am I going to do about my hair? And so, back to the origin of the story, it kind of started the seeds when I was wrapping my daughter's hair as she was young, and I was just thinking of her hair was, straight, and I was wrapping it to keep the style, but then my hair has short, natural curls. So I just started thinking of all the diversity in my Black family with my children, and we got weave, we got braid, like we had it all, and all the colors and
everything.
And yet we rock our beauty. We rock the beauty that God has given us. And I just was thinking about how Psalms 8 says that we're crowned with God's glory. And so I wrote down just a few thoughts that night. And then over the next few years, more ideas came, and I just sort of tucked them away and developed some rhyme. And then just at the right time, during the pandemic, I need to add, the Lord opened up the door with Waterbrook to put this message out.
Right, and that is my parent publishing company, Waterbrook, and which is one of the houses of Pingham Random House. So so we're book sisters, kind of like.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So I'm so glad. Even when you said you drew on the scripture in this, because for so long I can remember recounting back, playing with Barbie dolls and not wanting the brown Barbie dolls because their hair at that time, I'm dating myself, but I had brown Barbie dolls, but their hair was like a little afro, right? And so you couldn't comb through it, and like the other dolls. And little girls, we love to have the Barbie hairs and comb hair and stuff. And a lot of that has changed, but I just remember always, feeling, because of our hair, feeling a little inferior. To and this is our natural hair. This is the way our hair grows. Like for me, what I always say, our good friend Amina Brown always says, you can't tell a Black girl how to Black girl. We're gonna Black girl with natural hair. We're gonna Black girl with wigs. We're gonna Black girl with extensions. We're gonna Black girl with natural. We're gonna Black girl with relaxers. We're gonna Black girl with dye. All kinds of stuff. You name it, we can do it. And we're gonna Black girl with locks.
That's right.
There's no limit. We are so versatile, like our hair can do so many things and none of it is wrong,
That's right.
And so there's not one way. And so we always say, you can't tell a Black girl how to Black girl. And so
say it. I love it.
So don't tell us how to wear our hair. And so when you're thinking about that, it's like a reclaiming, Would you agree to that?
I absolutely would agree to that. And, the responses to this book that have really drawn me to tears have not only been from little girls who say, she looks like me. The girl on the cover is a beautiful chocolate girl with her natural hair. But I've had, friends who have, mixed race daughters as well, whose complexion may look different, but they see in this little girl on the cover, they see her joy, and they see hair that's got a bushiness to it, and they see themselves. And that has been so sweet, because I wanted our girls to have that rich representation that is getting better. We've got amazing books like Hair Love and so many others that are celebrating our beauty. And we're grateful that the market is shifting and is growing and giving us more representation. But what's also drawn me to tears, because this book also includes our faith and is sourced from God's truth that he speaks over us in Psalm 8, that we're crowned with his glory. So I've gotten some really emotional messages from women, and they are telling me that this book drew out emotion, that they cried, that, one girl said, my mom sent this book to me, and she's an adult, and she said, my mother sent it to me, and I've been struggling with my hair and my identity, and this book came at the right time. I needed it. And I was like, a children's book,
Wow.
But it reminds me of the power of story and the power of the words that for some of us were spoken over us or to us, maybe casually when we were children, but they stuck. And decades, 3, 4, 5 decades later, we're still grappling with how we view ourselves when we look in the mirror because of the things that other people said about us that took root, like seeds, and they grew up some things that weren't healthy. And so it's an honor, but it's humbling to see the effect of this little children's book on adult women as well. And I just give glory to God for that.
Yeah. Do you have the book with you, Dorena? Do you have it nearby?
I do.
Yeah. Would you read? Would you mind reading a little, maybe passage out of there? Especially when you're talking about how this book is speaking to adult women, a children's book, because there's sometimes trauma that we hold and memories that we hold that are not pleasant from comments. It's like all these little microaggressions that that are out there. I have a goddaughter, and her hair is her hair is more curly because her mom is half Asian, and so she just remembers, in school, this little girl telling her, like, I know you're glad your hair isn't like other black people, and she was like, and she was probably around 11 or 12 at the time, and she knew, she had enough sense to say, like, that's not a compliment. And and so I think it's some of those things where if you don't talk about it with our kids, and not just kids of color, but like if white people, if you don't talk about differences and diversity and, with your children, they're going to be cued either by you or by society to think these things, because we live in a racialized society. And so, and with that racialization, there are hierarchies. And so even if you're not telling them that they're better than someone else because of the way they look or the way their hair looks, society is telling them that. Media is telling them that. Social media is telling them that. And so you have to cue them in a different way. And so that's just, just something. So you think about that comment that was made, and just think about all the comments, that are made over time. And that can fracture your very soul. And your identity.
Let me read this line from the book. This is for people to give them a visual. This is on a spread in a beauty shop. Okay. And again, my goal was to give, for us, representation of our experiences, but it's also helpful because this is giving people who may have never been in a black beauty shop, this is what it looks like when we're in there.
Okay.
So it says, Bantu knots or twist out fun, a beauty puff in a textured bun. Reflections of culture all around, such glory in creating beautiful crowns. And then there's another spread where I say, the Creator crowned me with melanated glory, and every day I get to live out my beautiful story.
Oh, man. That is so beautiful. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And I can remember like that's a part of our just life experience and journey. I know every Black person doesn't have this experience, but I remember because, I had a mom who she wasn't the best at doing hair. She knew how to do ponytails and different things like that, but she was also a working mom. And so she would, send me I went to the beauty parlor like really young, to the salon. And so I can remember going to the salon as a young girl, and I know there another friend of mine just wrote a book called Wash Day, Tamisha. And so, just all of the chronicling, what that is like. So what was that like with your own kids? Like, did you have that experience of the salon, or did you wash, I think you said you had 3 daughters. Did you wash their hair yourself? How did you like kind of pour into them that their hair is beauty and they were crowned with glory?
Well, with my girls, and my son, so my son is the oldest. So, for him, it was a different experience because, he was going and getting his hair trimmed, and, it was kind of a father-son thing with Chris. But when my oldest daughter was born, she has a very, a finer texture of hair, but she had a lot of hair. And so, Saturdays were my hair day, and I realized with that first daughter who inducted me in that I was not a good hair mom. And it's just, some of us grow up and we're the auntie or the cousin that does cousin's hair and things like that. I have a cousin like that. Yeah. But that wasn't me. Now, I'll read to the kids. I'll do all kinds of fun things with them, but I wasn't the one that did hair. But when I had my own children, that daughter sort of, it was like my ding, ding, ding. This may not be your skill set, Dorena.
All Black people cannot braid.
Let's raise our hands.
All of us cannot braid. I cannot braid. I can barely plait.
I can plait. I can do a mean, French braid, but I tried to plait, and it just. So I would do a lot of twists, and I would put little bands at the bottom, and we do all kinds of, fun barrettes and bows and whatever she liked. We go to the store and just, things she could shake her head from side to side, and all the little bows would clink, and she loved all of that. But Saturday was our hair morning, so we would watch the Disney movies, whatever was at least 2 hours long, because I needed something that would keep her still, right? And then I had another daughter, and her hair texture was a little bit coarser. But she didn't have as much hair. So I was like, okay, I'm trying to work here. I'm still trying to manage it. And then we got another daughter, and she was our preemie and didn't have a lot of hair because she was born extremely early. And so by the time, so my husband was literally like praying, like, God, please help our daughter's hair to grow because she didn't have a lot of hair. And God started answering that prayer. And then I was like, are you still praying for her hair to grow? Because I can't manage it anymore. I need you to stop praying because I can't. So then I realized my hands are full. I can't. Yeah. So then it was just this humbling thing of, okay, I got to humble myself and outsource. I got to find somebody who can braid. And because then by this time, the older kids are getting to swimming age. And, with a son, it's not as big of a deal because we can condition. But with daughters. Oh, man, that will mess our hair up. That chlorine. It would mess up. And my husband, I grew up learning to swim at, summer camp as a young girl. But my husband grew up in the city with a traditional Black mama who was scared of the water. And because of the history, for people who don't know the history, for our culture, where a lot of our mothers were afraid of the water because not only did our parents not have access to swim, but if there were pools that they could swim in, people didn't want Black kids swimming with the white kids, and there's a whole difficult history around that. So so my husband didn't grow up swimming, and he battled fear of the water as an adult and didn't want our kids to have that mantle. So we lived in a neighborhood that had a community pool, and so I just was like, you know what? I need to get my girls' hair braided in the summer. It will make it easier for me. I can condition their braids, and then they can swim. Whenever they want to swim, we can go swim, and we don't have that limitation of, oh, mama isn't good with hair, and it's going to take me 5 hours to do it, and so you can't swim, So, that as a parent, you go through that journey of wanting to teach your children that they are beautiful and worthy of honor the way they are, that they don't need to compare themselves to their white counterparts, or of another race, but that their beauty is beautiful. But in that, mama, daddy, auntie, grandmama, whoever is raising them has to be capable of helping to take care of their hair. So, maybe this is going to free a black mama who feels like she's got to be superwoman. Sister, if you are not a good hair mama, it's all right. I'm sure you got many other things you do well. And if you are not great at fixing their own hair, there are other people who will be blessed by those funds, or maybe you can barter something else. But I just started to do that, let other people help braid and things like that, so that my girls could enjoy their culture and their style. I was not spending a million hours doing hair and giving them Tylenol and taking Tylenol because they're screaming. I'm frustrated. It's just become a all day thing. So a lot of that is poured into the book. When I show again the spread of the beauty shop, we would go. They didn't go every week, but they would go for special occasions to get their hair done, and that was a big deal. And learning to put a little gel on the edges, and again, getting braided for swimming, getting a special style for picture day, maybe some
and
special hair bow, and for Easter, and so all those things and then later on she gets some weave and she's rocking all, so my lead character Azira is rocking all different, literally every spread. She's got a different style because, as you said, we can do so many fun things with our hair. And we have so much creativity that God has crowned us with that we deserve to enter into that, to tap into it. But also, Tasha, let us not be remiss and not mention that we also are worthy of respect. And so I include a spread where Azira has a friend who's reaching her hand out to touch her hair because friends are curious. And they see our hair has changed and they want to understand maybe, or they're just curious. They want to touch. And so Azira is putting her hand out like, no ma'am, no ma'am, no ma'am, no ma'am, no ma'am, no ma'am, no ma'am.
Hi, friends. Just wanted to interrupt this conversation real quick to share about another one of our incredible partners, and this is Epic Will. For those of you who don't know, I lost my father unexpectedly last year, and so I have lived this and the benefit of this firsthand. When we think about some of the things that we go through, you gotta plan for some of the biggest reasons you need to have a will. And this is where this comes in. Like, when you are buying a house, you're getting married, these are things you have to think about. Epic Will is one of the easiest and most affordable ways that I know that you can make sure that you're covered. It's easy to think that I don't need this stuff right now. I just want you to know that a will gives you advance directives so that no one you love has to make tough medical decisions on your behalf. And I think that is very powerful. In as little as 5 minutes and for only $99, you can create an early estate plan with Epic Will. So go to epicwill.com and use promo code BTB20 for 20% off. Again, that's epicwill.com. And because you are a Be the Bridge listener, you get a promo code that is BTB20 for 20% off. Get some peace of mind today with Epic Will.
No, ma'am.
There's so many videos on this, but this is the thing: when you're not in proximity and you're not in relationship and you're not in these conversations, as much as we talk about this, there's TV shows that talk about it. There's commercials, there's all kind of memes and all of that. People still miss it because people live in these like homogenous bubbles, and it's always surprising when people are still doing that. If you don't have a relationship with a person, if you're not friends with that person, then you shouldn't be touching their hair. And it's just baffling to me how that happens. I was watching something earlier this week. Jamie Grace, she's a artist, a singer, and I follow her on Instagram, and she is so funny. She's a great mom, and I remember her music when she was a teenager, but she's also still producing. She's so creative. But she just did a song about not touching Black women's hair, and it's so catchy. And so I'm hoping that Trayvon is going to put a clip in there just so they can hear it. But she's actually, like talking about this, if you have questions about a Black woman's hair, just Google it, and it's like this little catchy rhyme, and it's so funny.
I think I saw that.
Yeah, because it others us. Yeah, because it really others us. It others us. But I'm always just as many questions as you have for me. I got questions for you, like because I really thought just about every white woman like they had naturally blonde hair. I didn't realize that they were all dyed their and just like you have different textures of hair, then we have different textures of hair. Or just think about the Latinx community, just the diversity just in hair, just in that community alone. And so we're all living with just beauty, that how God has created us all so different and called it good. And so I'm glad that you're reconnecting children back to God's story about who they are, and and how beautiful they are, because we're all created in His image. And so I think that's important in that. There was one thing I was, when you talk about representation in children's literature, I was reading this. A friend of mine has sent this to me about something that's happening, this trend that's happening in Great Britain. And I don't see it here as much, but I think it's something for us to watch out because people get exhausted, people can get fatigued about about Blackness, about, we hear, now the talk against, what wokeness means. But, for us, wokeness means understanding who we are and whose we are and our history, but that phrase has been attached to a lot of things. But in this comment, it says concerning, this is concerning, they said 23%, there was a 23% drop in Black characters in children's bestsellers since 2020. This is in Europe. And they said that as the Black Lives Matter publishing boom phase, there was a 31% decrease in the percentage of children's bestsellers written by Black authors from 2020 to 2021. Meanwhile, there was a 17% increase in the percentage of bestsellers for white authors, the largest increase in the last 10 years. I haven't seen that trend here, but it is always concerning. But because I am seeing so many books stateside, like yourself, that are addressing issues in our community, helping people to learn and to educate, to live in this multi-ethnic world. Books teaching about culture, especially for children, because, children are not born racist, they're not born racist. They are cued by their society and by the things that are happening where they embrace those racial biases, but they're not born that way. What would you say about that? Do you see an increase in Black representation in children's literature from your perspective?
I am seeing that increase, and I will also very gently say I'm seeing an increase not in just having white people who feature Black characters, but us being able to tell our stories. So again, I am able to write a book called Crown with Glory about Black girl hair because it's my lived experience.
Right.
It's my sisters and my brother and my family and my children. And so that's not to say that people who are not Black cannot, but there is a difference of featuring Black characters versus writing from, this is my lived experience. Like when I talk about those struggles, I have walked through those. I have parented through those. I have walked through those in my family. And so I have seen an increase, and it makes me glad because I know, and I know you know this, that there are so many who've come before us who have labored, who have been having those conversations behind the scenes, who've been trying to shine a light, and it's not been acknowledged or deemed as worthy or valued. The value word, I think, is really the key, that our voices weren't equally valued. We existed, so we'll put a little complimentary one or two of us out there, but, to know that we are valued. And when you give an author a publishing contract and you say, we want to release this work. And in my case with this book, I had the privilege of having a Black editor who came to Waterbrook at the same time I was signing on as an author. And then that Black editor, when she read this manuscript and knew she would work on it with me, right off the bat, Bumi said, this book will absolutely have a Black illustrator, because we have to have someone who shares our culture to illustrate a book about Black girl hair.
And
so
that's the sustainability right there, what you just said.
Yes. And it's landmark. Like,
at the table,
It has been such a joy for me, because when I had my first art direction meeting with my editor and with the illustrator and with the Waterbrook team, the first thing the illustrator said, and she's Canadian, shout out to Shalene. She's just an amazing, gifted illustrator. And she said to me, when I read the manuscript, it felt like my story. And that just filled me, Tasha. Like, it was honestly an emotional moment. I was trying to hold it in, because I, was excited and wanted to be professional, and I'm newly signed and, all the things. But I'm wanting to, like, can I go off the camera for a minute and have a cry and come back on? Because the woman who's going to bring this story to life and bring images for children has said that she feels like this story is her story. And so I knew that it was going to be special. And so, I hope that it continues. I hope that there are more Black editors who are given the opportunity to acquire the work, because we're out there. I think of, I meet Black authors all the time and writers who have wonderful stories, that they are just waiting to have the opportunity to share with the world. And so, it's going to take more editors and more people in the sales and marketing and the entire publishing team who will not have those biases, but who share the culture and share a longing to see that representation. So it's growing. I'm grateful for those who are doing the hard work, but I also give honor to those who did it before yours and my books were out there, who've been shining a light and speaking out like John the Baptist in the wilderness, shouting, can we get more representation? And I think it's just an honor that you and I have to be now a part of answering those prayers and the work that they did.
Yeah. I think, I'm going to say this because I know those who are listening, a lot of people who are listening to the Be the Bridge podcast, they're on a journey, on a learning journey of educating themselves or trying to grow in this, whether they're, a white person or, or a person of color. But when we say, one of the key things you said about hiring a Black editor, and it's not hiring a person just because they're Black, but hiring a qualified person that is in that role where you're dealing with a system that too has been, has had systemic, issues related to race, the publishing world. Just like every other system that we have, the publishing world is no different from that. And so you have to do something different in order to get a different outcome. So if we want to see more books, people make up systems and people are broken and we're fractured, and we see through, a lens of a racial lens of stereotypes. There are racial prejudices that people have. And so you take that into the workplace. And so people are attracted to things that is a part of their experience, that is a part of their story that they can relate to. And so if you have mostly white people in these roles of editor and illustrator, when it comes to now, here's a writer that's writing a Black book, they don't identify with that. They don't understand it. They don't see the market for it, because if you're living in a homogenous community. But until you step outside of that and bring someone in that has the lens, that has the perspective, that has the experience to say, no, I know several communities that want these books. These stories need to be told. And not just that, we have a lot of parents who have transracial adoption that are trying to learn and trying to grow and trying to teach their kids. And so this becomes a tool and an asset for them. So I don't want people to think that when people are hiring, that it's something that's taken away from white people. And first of all, that's kind of like a racist ideology when you think that something is, when something is actually been given as it relates to being equitable or equality, that is taken away. That's the world has taught us to really skew that type of thinking, where this is all actually making place so that all may flourish. This is about making it right, where it should have been a more inclusive world, and how God has created us equally. We have created systems that elevate some and that diminish others. And so what we're now doing is making that right, making the room more equitable. And that doesn't feel good to a lot of people, especially if you're used to your voice being at the top, and now your voice is, mixed in with everyone else's voice. And so I think I just wanted to say that, as you were explaining that, because I think that is going to be the key to publishing, where we don't see a decrease, is if that in these roles that you put people that look like the diverse world that they represent, if you put these talented people in those roles, so that we are getting an array of books. Because I remember growing up, I didn't have books like this, and just imagine when our parents grew up, they didn't have things like this, Laura Ingalls Wilder, Judy Blume, like all these things. And now, your book goes from, I think, 4 years old to 8 years old. But then there's that next group of when you start getting into the preteens or pre-adolescent. My godson, he's 10. And so now trying to find books for him where he can see himself and where there's representation, it matters. And there's not as many in that. So there's room for growth. And so I am glad that publishing companies like Waterbrook, they're actually, and Waterbrook is not paying for this. They're not, but they're just one example of something, and they're one example that they're doing something. They're putting action to their words. And there's, a lot of them, I think IVP books and, some different ones. But yeah, so I don't want to see a decrease, because we don't need to go backwards. We need to go forward, because, we're dealing with the millennial group, which is the most racially diverse group. And this group now outweighs, outnumbers the baby boomers. And so that's something, you think about that very diverse group in their children. You have the Gen Zers, and we're getting more diverse. We're not getting more homogenous. And so, so if you're looking at, if you're a numbers person and a data person, it's not just it's the bottom line too, where you look at over time, what's going to sell, but also it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. So how can parents encourage children to celebrate the differences in others, because we know sometimes mean things are said in school. And so you're writing books that's affirming to all children, even children with special needs. In a lot of your books, there is a inclusion of that. How do you think, so it's two questions. How do you think parents can teach their kids to celebrate the differences, and why do you make an effort to make sure that your books are not just racially inclusive, but also as it pertains to children that have special needs?
Well, I'll try to hit both questions with one broad answer, and that is that I believe that we are all image bearers of God. And I believe then that we should foundationally be teaching that to our children. Obviously parents are the first teachers and the primary teachers. So, as my children were, first moving about and I'm lotioning their skin, I'm complimenting the beauty of their brown skin as I'm putting that moisture on, and I'm just reminding them of how beautiful they are. When I'm fixing my daughter's hair and they look at themselves in the mirror, whether it was Afro puffs or long twists with clinky barrettes or braids or weave or whatever, I'm affirming to them, And so, for parents, how do they teach that? They teach that by practicing what they preach, by remembering that children are listening. So if they hear you watching the news or talking about people groups in a certain way, we've all seen the funny videos of that are funny but not really funny, of a kid repeating cuss words or repeating stuff that we go, oh my gosh, well, they're listening. So if they hear you over here degrading certain people, they're listening to your phone conversations. They are picking up what you are speaking. So, this is, bringing the aunties and the uncles and the godparents and the grandparents, all of us who are influencing children, which is pretty much everyone, whether it's in our neighborhoods, our families, or in our faith communities. Many of us are teaching in children's ministries, and we're high-fiving kids and asking them how they're doing. So I would just encourage the parents and those who influence to remember that our words matter. And that's where books are a wonderful and warm companion, because books come alongside and help. As you read a book like Crowned with Glory with your Black children, but also please read it with your white children, so that they look at a book that, for the most part, does not include their cultural context, but it's good for them because they're seeing the normality of Black culture. And so when they are spending time with their Black friends, it's not strange. They're not othering them. They are a part of community together because they're reading about it in stories. So it's not unfamiliar. It takes away that, oh, they're different and that must be bad. As humans, we automatically assign often that negativity to something that's different. So instead, teaching your children from the time they're young that different is good. It's different. Their body may work differently. Their body may look different than yours. Their mind might work differently as we try to unpack, learning challenges. And that's good. They're not less than you because their body or their mind works differently. They are gifted by God just like you. And in fact, God made them that way. And again, everyone's story looks different. I was inspired with thoughtful by my nephew who has Down syndrome. And so if I believe Psalm 139:14, that every one of us is fearfully and wonderfully made, my nephew is not exempt from that. God didn't accidentally give him that bonus chromosome. No, when he was knit in my sister's womb, God intentionally and carefully and lovingly designed him with that bonus chromosome so that he could glorify him the way that he does. And at 14, my beautiful Josiah, absolutely, that boy rocks that bonus chromosome, and he rocks God's glory and is one of the most delightful humans you can meet. And through Thoughtful, he has inspired kids around the world to appreciate those differences. So I make that effort, Tasha, because it matters, because we're made in the image of God, and because we have the opportunity to really shape these young hearts and minds through literature, through the words that we speak over them, and the way that we introduce them to the people around us in the world.
Wow, incredible insights. Don't go anywhere. We're going to pause for a quick moment, and we'll be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. A lot of us will drop anything to go help someone we care about. We'll go out of our way to treat other people well. But how often do we give ourselves the same treatment? Are we looking out for our personal selves? Do we invest in ourselves? And there's ways that you can invest in yourself through therapy, coaching, self-care, listening to your own body, working out. These are ways that we take care of ourselves. So this month, BetterHelp Online Therapy wants to remind you that you matter. just as much as everyone else does. And therapy is a great way to make sure that you show up for yourself. Just like we do checkups, sometimes we need to do check-ins with our therapist. And I find this very helpful, and I find this as an outlet for myself personally. BetterHelp is an online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. So you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. They make it easy for us. They take out the awkward. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. Talk about even saving gas by doing it online. Give it a try and see why over 2 million people have used BetterHelp online therapy. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Be the Bridge listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/BeTheBridge. That's BetterHelp.com/BeTheBridge. So make sure you remember to take care of yourself in the midst of all your busyness. Take time out for you.
Thanks for staying with us. Let's get back to our conversation.
I love it, and I think that's the way we have to look at this. It's an opportunity for growth. And just imagine, walking into a classroom, walking into a Sunday school room, or walking into a community center, and you're seeing books that represent the community at large, and even if you live in a community that is more homogenous, you still can represent the world in your literature. You can bring the world to your kids through literature. And I think it's an opportunity to teach and grow and to help this next generation be better and do better, and to really honor all of God's creation. And so I think, this is really exciting, the things that I'm seeing. I was just recently talking to a friend that's in Colorado, and she was saying how she's a white mom, and she buys her daughter, different books, and, her son different books, and diverse, toys. That's one of the things we teach and Be the Bridge as bridge builders. You want to integrate their play. And so even when there's, not real life people around, there's ways that you can do that. And so she brought her daughter, different color Barbies and doll babies. And she noticed that her daughter was only playing with the white ones. And she was just watching for a couple weeks. She would only play with the white ones. And she would just leave the other ones. And so she decided to play with her daughter one day. And she said, I want this one. And she picked up the brown one. And every time she would play with her daughter, she always wanted the brown one. And then eventually her daughter mimicked that behavior and started playing with the brown one. And I think that's just something, that's parenting, and it's not like, there's not a whole bunch of people around them, but she wanted to model that, and what she does and how she communicates. And I think this is a way, the books that you're writing are tools where people can model that, these thoughtful and grateful and colorful and graceful and are there going to be more in this series of the full series? And
right now, no, and I won't ever say never. But that was a 3-book contract deal for those. But with Waterbrook, Crown with Glory is the first of 3. So we got several more coming. So
there's more to come.
There's more to come. So just taking those messages and putting them in new stories. I have the one I'm really excited about this fall in September is called Brown Baby Jesus.
Ooh.
And so it is a beautiful brown Jesus with wonderful bushy hair. And he, it is the Christmas story. It's a Christmas story, but it is the multi-ethnic family of Jesus. And so it is saying to children, it's giving them a new narrative, what I believe is a correct narrative of what Jesus looked like. And, I think Dante Stewart just put up a week or so ago, a Life magazine, as you and I are recording this, they had put out this new, a new magazine that featured the blondest, whitest. I mean, just, it's like he gets blonder and blonder. And I'm not shading any of our family members listening who are blonde. This is absolutely no shade to you being blonde.
Right,
but however, like for real, like Palestinian Jewish Jesus, blonde, like he just
and we
gets
have to
blonder and
understand
blonder.
where that depiction comes from.
That's exactly right.
But we
That's
love
exactly
to embrace
right.
lies. We love to embrace lies, and we say it doesn't matter. Then I'm like, well, if it doesn't matter, then depict it in the right way.
Well, and see, that's, I was talking to my parents about that last night, and I was giving them a sneak peek of the cover, and I believe in a few weeks that Waterbrook will release the cover. There's always particulars about the timing for cover releases, but suffice it for our listeners to say he is a beautiful brown. But as I was talking to my parents, I said, I know I can already hear the chorus of white people saying, why did you portray him brown? It doesn't matter. And my answer will be, did it matter before you saw my depiction? Because all of a sudden it doesn't matter when he's brown, because to you the default has been white Jesus. And so, the heart of the book is truly to share scripturally that, we've got Rahab and Ruth and Bathsheba and Tamar, these Hamitic women who God designed them as part of Jesus' story. And to really highlight that his story is not just the nativity that we look at, but it included these women, it included widows and people with pain. He came from all of us because he came for all of us. So I'm excited, but I got my game ready because I know how people are, and I know that all of a sudden folks are going to be agitated when they see a beautiful, chocolate Jesus, and yet he's the savior for the whole world. So I'm excited to bring that forth.
I mean, okay, so Jesus is for real, but you know how people get, even when it comes to Santa Claus. So I'm going to be praying for you, sister.
We know Santa Claus. Never mind that so many of them don't know the story of Saint Nick, and I mean the origin, Saint Nicholas, and where it came from.
Of that.
So can we teach our children that, because that's even more important than Santa. But yes, But you know what, Tasha? I'm just trying to be obedient to what God has called me to do.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
Life is short. You and I were talking about grandparents before we came on, and my 95-year-old grandmother is reminding me in her twilight season that I have to fulfill the call that God has placed on my life, and I am not doing it focused on those who will have problems. I'm a preacher's kid and I'm a first lady, so I know church people, I know God's people, I know our families have a lot of jacked upness, and we have so much brokenness, and yet I know that when I look at the faces of these beautiful children, when I get to do school visits or visit with churches and look at these kids, they're wide-eyed and they're eager, Tasha, and their hearts and their minds are ripe for shaping. And if we're not filling it with God's truth that he's declared over them, and if we're not giving them images that are life-bearing, that are healing, then there are narratives waiting to fill their hearts and minds. And so, I would implore people, beyond supporting my books, to just give great care to what they're adding, and go to the library. If your finances don't allow you to do a lot of purchasing, libraries are doing better at stocking. I've had people reach out and say that they've seen my books in libraries. So they're stocking books, even faith-based books, and beyond our faith, just books that tell great stories of people in history, the people we know well and those whose stories deserve to be shared, that are getting that due. So, give great care at your libraries. And if you have the means to to buy books for your kids, buy extra for children's birthday parties and for shower gifts, and give them to your churches. Lord knows, so in our houses of God, kids can pick up books as they're having their free playtime, and even as teachers are shaping lessons. You know, I have a YouVersion devotional connected to Crown of Glory now that people can find on the Bible app. And so, you know, they're just are becoming more and more tools, Tasha, and it makes my heart glad because it's just coming alongside our parents and our adults and saying we can give our kids a better way, and here are tools that will help you. They won't do the work for you, and you advocate for that with Be the Bridge. You have to do your work. You can't wait for other people to do it for you. But these tools come alongside. So I would just implore folks to support that, and let's just be really intentional about shaping those little hearts.
Right. And I love giving books as gifts, and to my little cousins and to friends, children. I just recently, a friend of mine just had a baby, and I brought some books, of course. Some, you know, I'll go and see what's out there, what's new, and, you know, and I was so glad, you know, when I went to the baby's room, that there was such a great representation already that people had given diverse books. So this, you know, this work of bridge building is really working. It's helpful and beneficial for us all. And I, you know, even my little cousin, I for Christmas, I always give them a couple books. And I gave one of my little cousins one about Latinx history, because I think that's important. You know, although she's African American, I still want them to know the history of other people too. And you know, those contributions that have come from that community. And so I think that's something also within our community, to making sure that we're educating our children on just on all BIPOC, you know, understanding in the indigenous community and all of those things, because we can become insulated and only understand our culture and our way. And just like we should know what the world looks like outside of America, and how other people groups live, and languages and all those things. I think that just makes us better and more whole as people. So I'm so grateful for your work, you know, Doreen, and I'm so grateful for all that you're doing, and you know, and how God is using you, you know, in all that you're doing. And like this has been a quick work for you. You know, this has been a quick work for you, because like we met just a couple years ago, you hadn't written one book, and now there's 5.
Yeah. It has. And
there's
you know, it reminds me to be careful what you pray for. And that's not to limit ourselves with prayer, but you know, I always think about those who've come before, who were laboring long before my books showed up in the world. And it keeps me in context, and make sure that I walk out this calling with humility. But you're right, it has been quick. It's like, okay, I was praying and laboring and waiting and crying out to God and burdened with the stories I wanted to share. And then literally all of a sudden, God opened up the door, and I was able to do those full books. And then we had a pandemic, and I was in pause mode again of, okay, Lord, now I'm at another juncture of waiting. And so, you know, it's just those cycles of you're waiting, you're preparing, you're doing that good work behind the scenes, you know, like, you know, as it's March now and we're beginning to start seeing, you know, bits of budding, but during those winter months, it looks like nothing is happening because it's cold and it's barren. But there's all kinds of work going on under the surface that's preparing for the fruitful season. And I feel like that's been my story. And I would just encourage those who are doing that good work that may not be published or may not be known, that the goal isn't for other people to know who we are. It's to be faithful in whatever it is that God has called us to do. And please keep going, keep on doing whatever that good work is, building bridges, because God will get the increase, whether you're called to plant or you're called to water. You know, God is going to get the increase from the good work. And I'm just grateful to get to be a part of it. He's doing it, like you said, all over the world. And I'm just want to, one step at a time, keep putting out these good seeds. So.
Well, we're so grateful for you. We're so grateful for just the work that, that you're doing, and just for being a bridge builder. And I'm so glad that our paths have connected. And, it seemed like we've been on this journey together, just with book publishing and just all of the things. And so, I'm so grateful to have you as a friend of BTB, and that we can bring your story and your content to the greater community. So thank you so much for sitting down with us. But before you go, I want to say, I always ask this question of what are you lamenting, and then what are you hopeful for? And so as we end, what is something that you're lamenting, and then what is something that you're hopeful for?
Well, as you and I are recording this, I am spending time with my grandmother in her twilight season, and we just had a very emotional conversation this morning about how children don't always feel valued. And my mother took me aside later and said, she was talking about her own story, and it made me again want to go sit and just weep. Because at 95, she's reading my book, Crowned with Glory, but she's also remembering decades before when she didn't feel valued. And so I lament that any child in this world is questioning whether they have value, whether their life is worthy. That fills me with sorrow. And it also fuels me to be a part of giving them work that reminds them that they are valued, not for what they do, not even for what they look like, Tasha, but they are valued because God created them and they bear his image. Mm-hmm. They are crowned with his glory. So I lament that so many of us have stories that are filled with feeling unworthy. I lament that. I lament that for myself and for everyone who's listening, because truly we all can unpack that we've journeyed through that. But I also am filled with hope that if we truly understand that God has declared us crowned with his glory, that we are lovely and beautiful for who we are. Not for what we do, but for who we are. And hope that I can just help spread that message.
Yes, love it. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, friend.
We love you, and so wishing you the best, okay?
Thank you,
You have a good one.
Go to the donors table if you'd like to hear the unedited version of this podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Be the Bridge podcast. To find out more about the Be the Bridge organization and or to become a bridge builder in your community, go to bethebridge.com. Again, that's bethebridge.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, remember to rate and review it on this platform and share it with as many people as you possibly can. You can also connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Today's show was edited, recorded, and produced by Trayvon Potts at Integrated Entertainment Studios in Metro Atlanta, Georgia. The host and executive producer is Latasha Morrison. Lauren C. Brown is the senior producer.
And transcribed by Sarah Connatser.
Please join us next time. This has been a Be the Bridge production.